Okay, setting up your webinar. Okay, let's just see. Okay, so we're live. Okay, so do you want to start? Možemo početi. Ajde. Prvo na hrvatskom i onda možemo imati kratki opis na engleskom. Ovako, pozdrav i dobrodošli svi na drugi webinar Cro dijaspora i coka. Danas imamo jako zanimljivu temu. Želim se prije svega zahvaliti našim gostima koji su izdvojili svoje vrijeme i pripremili se za vaše pitanje i odgovore za današnji webinar. Naš prvi gost je Monika Maretić. Ona je partner i odvjetnica u Markušić Maretić odvjetničkom uredu. Položila je pravosudni ispit s iznimnim uspjehom te posebnom pisanom pohvalom. Osim svojih akademskih dostignuća, Monika je radila kao odvjetnička vježbenica i savjetnica hrvatskih zastupnika. Naš drugi gost je Don Markušić. Evo, kao ne mogu opisati sve o Donu, ali evo ovaj jedan mali kratki otpis. Don je osnivač i predsjednik Azijsko-Pacifičke gospodarske komore, potpredsjednik Transparency International Hrvatske, bivši predsjednik Američke gospodarske komore u Hrvatskoj, te viši savjetnik na parlamentarnom zakonodavnom odboru. Počasni je član udruge branitelja iz Gline i počasni veleposlanik udruženja Nikole Tesle. Don je 90. godina iskoristio priliku za povratak u svoju domovinu Hrvatsku iz Australije. Razvio je pravnu praksu u PricewaterhouseCoopersu Hrvatska. Don ima impresivnu karijeru i njegova ljubav prema domovini je utjecala na njegovu odluku o povratku u domovinu generacije hrvatske odvjetnike o važnosti njihove uloge za promjene u Hrvatskoj. I sada na engleskom. Hello and welcome everybody to the second Cro Diaspora SOC webinar. Today we have a very interesting topic and a lot of people have been asking about it. I'd like to thank our two amazing guests for taking some time out of their busy schedules to inform us about the Croatian legal system. Monika is an attorney and our first guest, Monika is our first guest and is an attorney and partner at Markušić Maretić Law Firm. She studied law at the University of Zagreb, completing her LLB and LLM in record time. She also has the distinction of passing the Croatian Bar Exam with a perfect score. Besides her superb educational achievements, Monika advised Croatian parliamentarians on legal matters before she became legal partner at Markušić Maretić. Our other guest is Don Markušić. I think that, no description can fully describe what Don is, but here's a shot. Don is founder and president of the Asia Pacific Chamber of Commerce, vice president of Transparency International, former president of the American Chamber of Commerce, and expert advisor on the Croatian Parliamentarian Legislative Committee. He is an honorary member of the War Veterans Association of Glina, and also the honorary ambassador of the Nikola Tesla Association. Along with a successful law career in Australia and Austria, Don found an opportunity to come back to Croatia in the 1990s through developing the legal practice at PricewaterhouseCoopers in Croatia. Soon after, he bought a building on Trg Svetog Marka, which is a beautiful story within itself, and he made that into his new office and home. His career is impressive, but his love for Croatia was a culminating factor that brought Don back to Croatia to influence the next generation of lawyers in Croatia. And as Don would say, ne daj mira. Now I would like to give it off to Don to, start off things. And also just to kind of go over the format, a lot of you have asked similar questions. So we decided to kind of divide it and kind of consolidate a lot of the questions that we got. A lot of them were about land, about your wills, whether it was legally binding in Croatia, opening up businesses, and also we'll give our conclusions about the legal system and where it's going to go in the future. And now I give it to Don.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you very much for your kind words. And hello, everyone. And I'd like to wish all our Canadian friends a happy Victoria Day. I just wanted to mention the Association of Croatian American Professionals, an organisation here in Zagreb, and we're doing a lot of good work, which is going to come up in our presentation as well. So I'd also like to thank Mate as the organisation for Diaspora for inviting us to this webinar, and also Steve Bartolica, who is the president of TOC, the Centre for the Renewal of Culture. The title of this webinar is The Croatian Legal System, What You Need to Know. So we're not going to lecture you about, what the laws are in terms of, the texts and that sort of thing. What we want to do is tell you what you should look out for and how to manage the risk and how to protect your investment.
Perfect.
Hey, hi everybody. Thank you, Marta and SOC, for inviting us, and thank you everybody for coming. We will try to answer on all of your questions. So Marta, we can start.
Perfect. So I would like to kind of start off by some general questions because a lot of our viewers are coming from the common law system, and a lot of people don't realize that there's an actual different legal system in mainland Europe and the rest of the Anglo-Saxon world. So what I would like to ask first is, many of our viewers are tuning in from these countries. So in mainland Europe, many countries use the civil law system, which has its roots in Roman law. And some of the characteristics are, for example, comprehensive, frequently updated legal codes. As in civil law, there is no one legal system alike. What are some other specific differences you would encounter in the Croatian legal system that would not necessarily encounter in other countries? And this question is for Don, because you're the only common law lawyer in Croatia, right?
Right, that's right. The first one. And I just want to say, so clearly there are huge differences, especially between the common law system and the civil law system. And that also came to the fore when I wanted to get my law degree, common law degree, recognized in Croatia, because they had lawyers from the civil system previously, and they topped up their law degree from another country, and away they went practicing law in Croatia. But I was the first common law lawyer, and they didn't know what to do with me. So it took many years for them to work it out. But after I got my law degree recognized, I established the precedent. So even though we don't have precedents here in Croatia, big difference between common law and civil law. But as a result of me getting my law degree recognized, I now open the gate for any common law lawyer to come to Croatia and have their law degree recognized. The bar exam is you still have to do the bar exam, but the big hurdle is you no longer have to have you know what to do to get your law degree recognized. When some of the other things, there are concepts. I found practicing law here that there are a lot of differences in terms of some of the concepts. So there are things in Croatian law or in common law which is not known here. For example, I think there's a question on somebody wanting to set up a trust to protect their property in Croatia, but under Croatian law, it doesn't recognize the concept of trust. But having said that, there are some common law principles that are being used more and more, are being adopted, and concepts, and that's because, for example, financial instruments, in contracts, more and more we're using these, because things are internationalized. So, and some of these concepts didn't exist under communism, of course. We had to adopt a lot of EU laws, so a lot of concepts came through there. But you see, Croatia does have a lot of good laws, otherwise we wouldn't be able to go into the EU. That was part of it. But the problem is actually in the implementation. There are also some concepts. Another problem is concepts where there are the same in common law and civil law, but some judges don't actually know how to apply them. In corruption surveys, Croatia is right up there in terms of the legal system. The legal system being corrupt under these surveys. But sometimes I don't know what's worse, corruption and incompetence. Well, we can give an example. When we try to use an injunction, there's a particular case where $2 million was transferred from Australia to Croatia because of a sale from a property. It was supposed to be divided between my client and somebody else. And the other lawyer, we could see that he was going to renege on the deal. So we asked for an injunction to block the bank account and sue them for our client's money. And what happened was
You see your microphone?
Yep.
So your mic. Maybe put your microphone closer to your face because it's starting to repeat. Okay.
It started to fade?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. Yeah.
Okay. So what happened was there was $2 million being transferred from Australia to Croatia, and the lawyer wanted to renege on the deal. Now we sought an injunction on the bank account so that we could secure the money whilst the court case was going on. Now the other side, they didn't care that we sued them because they knew that it was going to take a few years, and by the time the court case finished, they would have spent the money anyway. Now the judge took his sweet time in terms of granting an injunction. And we explained to him, look, injunction is something urgent. We need to stop them from doing something. But he said, no, I have to listen to all the clients, all the cases rather, all the parties. And it just took such a long time. So what do we do about that? Now, in this case, we didn't get the injunction on time. And of course, it caused a lot of damage to our client. So what we're doing is we're suing the government of Croatia. Your judge has cost our client $1 million, and the other side has spent it because your judge did not know what an injunction was. Now, other things that I found different, particularly peculiar to Croatia, is trouble and watch loss. When a court decision is not final until all the avenues of appeal are exhausted. Now, in the common law system, when you're convicted, that's it. You are convicted at first instance. If you want to appeal, you can appeal. But until the appeal is upheld and the conviction is quashed, then you're still you still have conviction. Whereas here, it seems that things go on for years and years, and you have these cases where corrupt politicians are convicted, but then they say, no, it's not promotional, I'm not convicted until the final appeal is heard. But we're not saying here that one system is better than another. For example, in Croatia, we don't have a jury system. In Australia, I practiced law before coming to Croatia. And the High Court in Australia recently said that the jury got it wrong when they convicted Cardinal George Pell for offences against minors, sex offences. But not only that, there was a prominent lawyer in my jurisdiction in Australia who was defending criminals and then told the police what they had told them, and then they were convicted. Now, these convictions are not going to stand. So if I didn't come to Croatia, I'd still be in a jurisdiction where practicing law in a system where people are saying, well, the system is broken, and it's in Australia. So I think we cannot just, it's not about common law try and impose a system. What we want to do is it's about managing investment risk and protecting and seeing what protections we can have.
Just wait a sec. Your volume is just a little bit off, so I'm just trying to fix that at the moment. So just wait a second. Hold your mic a little bit closer to your face.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then I don't think that that's the mic that you're actually using. I think the mic that you're using is on your computer. So like your actual, yeah. So maybe like move the computer a little bit closer to you. Okay.
This might be working, all right?
It might be working a little bit more, but what I'll do is that from now on, whenever like one of you talk, I'm just going to mute everybody else and then just let that person talk because it'll help with the volume. But anyways, sorry about interrupting. But would you like to go on to the second question? Sure. So in the absence of a recommendation, so this comes from a viewer from England. In absence of a recommendation, how does someone go about hiring a Croatian lawyer who's reliable, and how can checks be made? So this question is for Don.
Sorry, I thought it was, but in any case, the reason why I would like to answer it is because I've seen what it's like working in the different systems. So here it's a pretty closed profession. There is no system of checks as such, and it's mainly word of mouth. You can, of course, report a lawyer to the Bar Association for disciplinary action. Lawyers can't advertise, and we're actually trying to be very careful with this webinar, so we're just giving information. I have discussed this situation with Markušić Maretić, who's the president of the Croatian American Bar Association, to see how we can get the Croatian Bar to open up a bit more and reduce the restrictions on lawyers to advertise. But in terms of lawyers, and I think particularly in property, yeah, there are cases that where they seem to be causing more problems than what they started out with. So, for example, there was a case of an Australian client who went to local lawyers in Australia in relation to some legal work on his property in Croatia, and they subcontracted to a Croatian lawyer. Now, the local lawyer then charged a fortune to this client in Australia, and he's actually suing him. Actually, he didn't have the right to charge exactly that much, but he's suing him, of course, in Croatia for the payment of his fees. Now, you see, in this case, it might be difficult to run the case in Croatia, but the answer here is if you hire the Australian lawyers who subcontracted, then for any damage that you suffered, you should go after the Australian lawyers who subcontracted out the Croatian lawyers. So I think that's what's happening in this particular case. But there are a lot of good lawyers too, that want to get the job done. The president of the Bar Association, for example, he was on the other side in this transaction that I was doing, and we both acted in the interest of our client, and not just that, but we were actually in the interest of the transaction. It was done, so nobody was being pig-headed about it. We just made sure that the deal was done and everybody was happy.
Sorry about this. I'm just trying to make sure that the volume is, so the volume is a little bit better now since so we've unmuted everything. Okay, so the third question is that a lot of people from the United States have been asking about, their double taxation situation. So a lot of people that want to return to Croatia and retire in Croatia, or they have like investments in the United States and they want to move back to Croatia. I know we don't have enough time to kind of get into like the nitty gritty of, the specific tax part of it. And what I would like to do is actually have another webinar about that. But I was wondering if you can kind of go over what ACAP is doing with the double taxation and what are the steps going on, and since your office is right across the street from the Sabor, what are the things that are happening on the Croatian side of the double taxation treaty, and when, maybe tell us a little bit more, maybe when it's feasible, when it's going to be implemented in Croatia and in the United States.
Double tax is a very big problem and an impediment for American investment, not just for investors, but for example, when professors or scientists come to work in Croatia, to work for various departments or schools, their income is taxed twice. So apart from profits of companies, it really is an important something very important that we should implement. At ACAT, we have a separate task force that is dealing with that issue, and I must say the American ambassador Cohorst, he's done a lot of work in this area, and in Washington, he's been talking to Treasury a lot, and he put Croatia on the list to have a double tax treaty signed. Now he says that we're on the list, not high up. Now it's a question of trying to put it higher. But AmCham, I know they're involved. What we've been trying to do is trying to set the case or make the case for a tax treaty. As I said, ACAP has been working on it. So is the ambassador. I'm not sure. The situation seems to have stopped now with the situation everywhere in the world. But it's a case of trying to put us up more further up the list, but everybody's working hard on it, and as I said, the ambassador has been tremendous, and on the Croatian side too, we've had a lot of cooperation.
Because I think that the issue is not necessarily on the Croatian side, right? It's more or less on the American side, like within Treasury, trying to get it up, as you said. But what we'll do is that there was a lot of tax questions. So what we'll do is that we'll have a different webinar, and we'll have a financial advisor to kind of, I wish that people asked these questions last week when John Gachbadac was here. He would have probably answered a lot of these questions. But anyways, I would like to kind of go on to land issues. A lot of people had questions about that. And this question is for Monika. So many are also asking about property that is inherited between multiple parties. So let's say your cousins and yourself, or maybe you and your brother. How is the property passed on to children in Croatia? In other words, what are some of the possible solutions for potential problems?
So actually, So in order to transfer property to the children, probate proceedings must be held in Croatia, after somebody dies. And in Croatia, probate proceedings are usually, they're commenced by filing an application to the court. But even though, an application is filed with a court, another public is the one who is conducting this procedure. And what is important to know that what you need to have to initiate this procedure is definitely the death certificate of the deceased, as well as a list of the estates and transcription of the family tree. This procedure, can you hear me? This procedure actually shouldn't take more than 3 months. Of course, if there is no dispute between the heirs. And in most cases, one hearing is enough. Also, it's always good to call with notary public before the hearing, to see whether all the documents are in order, so that there are no surprises on the day of the hearing. What is maybe interesting to say for people in diaspora is that it's not necessary for the heirs to be, personally present at a hearing, because they can have a lawyer who can, come and represent them and actually determine the inheritance. Also, there are some relatives who are protected by law in this procedure, which means that they have the right, to a certain part of the inheritance, regardless of what it says in the will, which is good. So when I say relatives, they're like close relatives, like wife or children of the deceased. So they're protected by law in this procedure. This is the best way to transfer your property when somebody dies to their children.
Okay. The live feed is kind of going a little bit slower. So Don, could you maybe shut your laptop and then just go to Monika's? Or shut your laptop too.
Oh, you're here, Don.
Yeah. No, but Don, reci Donu da mora zatvoriti laptop. Da mora zatvoriti laptop, zato što zatvori laptop. Perfect. Yeah, that's way better. That's way better. I think that the stream was a little bit too slow. Okay. This is better. Okay. So next question is also for Monika. So many have been wondering about their wills in other countries. So a lot of people are asking whether or not their wills are legally binding in Croatia. So what is the legal standing of wills from outside of Croatia? And what is the process for those wanting to have those wills interpreted in Croatia?
So as far as wills from other countries are concerned, they are actually recognized here in Croatia, which means that you don't have to write another will, for your property here. The will that you already made is actually perfect, but there are some, conditions that are, prescribed by our law, which means that this will needs to be in a certain form. It has to be signed and witnessed in certain cases, and of course, it has to be officially translated into Croatian language, because we can't use a will that is not in our language at a court. But actually, the procedure that I just described will take place in Croatia for the US and Canadian will as well, so everything remains the same.
Okay, so basically the process is that the will is legally binding in Croatia, but you have to do the process of actually, you need to go to a notary republic as well, right?
Well, if everything's done already in the USA or in Canada, you don't have to, just need to translate that will. But if not, then you have to do it here in Croatia. Okay,
so the process is that you have a will, you can come to Croatia, you need to translate it, and then that will is legally binding in Croatia.
Yes, definitely.
Perfect. So another question, I think that it's a very important thing to kind of understand, is that a lot of people don't understand their property rights in Croatia and where to actually find out about information about their property. So I want to ask this question is, why is the land registry so important? And what is the difference between the land registry and the Cadastre?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Well, the land register is actually the key to acquiring property rights when you're buying a property, because many people think that it's just enough to conclude a purchase property to become an owner of property, but it's not. You need to register your title ownership in the land register in order to become an owner of the property. So it could happen that an owner actually concludes several agreements with different buyers, and they can all pay the purchase price, but only one of them will be actually owner of the land or of the property. So the buyer who will become owner is the one who will first apply for the registration of his ownership in the land register. So that's why it's really important to be careful when buying the property, because other buyers actually can sue the seller, but and of course they can ask their money back, but they can't become owners anymore. There's a way to to avoid this whole thing. You can make a pre-registration, which means that when you conclude your agreement, then you can pre-register your ownership. After that, you can pay the whole purchase price, and the final step will be, the registration. So really, you have to be careful, when buying the property, because there are a lot of strands. Also, when you mention cadastral register, people get often very confused because they think that the land register and the cadastral register are the same, registers, but they're not. There's a huge difference between them. The land register actually is a proof of ownership, and the cadastral register is just proof of possession or the use of certain property, which means the first step will be searching the land register, not the cadastral register, buying the property. And also, what is very important with a land register is that it shows mortgage over the property, which is not a case with a cadastral, registers. So these are the differences.
Okay, so we have another viewer from New Zealand, and he's asking about co-ownership of land and his rights. And he says, is there a law in Croatia that pertains to the co-ownership of land and property in Croatia? What are the obligations of the co-owners?
Yes, there is a law. The main law is the law on ownership and the other rights in RAM. And this one is also a very interesting question because many people from diaspora think that they own property, but they're just one of 10 owners, for example. And
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And before I explain the obligations of the co-owner, I would just like to point out that there is a difference between co-ownership and joint ownership, because at first sight it seems like we are talking about the same thing. There's a big difference between these two ownerships, because if you are a co-owner, then your part in that ownership is specified, which means that you do know which part of the house is yours, and you know that you own, for example, 1/2 or 2/3 of the house, and you're allowed to transfer that part to somebody else, which is not the case in joint ownership. So if you are in joint ownership, you do know that you own, land with somebody else, but you don't know which part of the land is yours. You don't know, do you have 1/2 or 2/3 of the land, and you are not allowed to transfer that part to anybody else. So that's the main difference. And maybe The best example for joint ownerships are the heirs, because if they once start initiate the probate proceedings, then they are just joint owners. So that's why it's important to obtain grant of probate in order to become a co-owner. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So now back to the obligations. I explained the difference, but I don't. Yeah, well, if you're a co-owner, so you can transfer your part of the property, and also in relation to the property that is in co-ownership, the benefits and costs are divided among co-owners in proportion of their parts. So if you have 2/3 of the house and you decide to, rent out a whole house, of course you have rights to 2/3 of the rental income. The same applies to the costs and other duties. And there's also one thing about decisions. If you are going to make a decision which is about everyday matters, then you will need a majority vote of co-owners. But if it's some extraordinary decision, then you will need the consent of the others. It's not enough that you have, like, for example, 3/5 of the house. You will need the consent of the others to make a decision about extraordinary matters.
Okay. So I hope that makes everything clear about, co-ownership rights in Croatia. It is a big issue with a lot of people, especially if they go to Austria or they go to Germany, and let's say they're like first or second generation, then they want to, claim their rights in Croatia, then they really don't know whether or not they can claim it or how to claim it and the whole process. So I hope that clears up a lot of people's questions about that. So coming from an American viewer now, she writes actually 2 questions. So, and I don't know how much we can actually go into this question, but I think that we can kind of maybe give you a little bit of advice. So she writes, I have land in Croatia that I have inherited, and I'm waiting for the government to assess its value, so I know what my fees would be. I have been waiting years, and they still have not evaluated the land. What's a better way? So I think Don would probably be you have a lot of experience in this.
I just missed the first part, but we're talking about a transfer of land, yeah? Like an inheritance, is that what you said?
Yeah, exactly, inheritance.
Okay, so
but I'm not sure if we can, I'm not sure if we can talk too much about like evaluating the land, but maybe that's like a question that we can answer in our financial part of it, like our financial webinar.
Yeah, well, actually, what you said about the tax questions, actually, Croatian lawyers aren't supposed to be answering tax questions.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, if you mean the 3% transfer tax when you purchase property, this doesn't apply to property that's inherited, but it's a direct inheritance from a spouse or direct lineage, like parents, children, that sort of thing. Otherwise, if you inherit property from somebody else, then
you have to pay the tax.
Correct. But in terms of evaluating property, when you buy property, you have to file the contract or the grant of probate with the tax office, and they will assess the land. They will not rely on your purchase price. They have their own sort of scale, so to avoid anybody under putting a lower price. But you're only liable to pay tax when you get an actual decision from the tax authority. So, because otherwise you don't know what to pay. So if you haven't received a decision in years, you're not liable to pay.
So she doesn't have to pay tax.
Well, the thing is this, it could also be statute barred. We don't know enough facts about this case, but it could even be statute barred. So you only pay if you have an actual decision.
Mm-hmm. So question number 2 from the same lady. As a dual citizen, is it better for me to finance property with a US bank account or Croatian bank account? You don't need to say which one's better, but it's possible for both, right?
No, it's not a case of which one you should pay from. Like, it doesn't matter which how you pay for the property. The main thing is, as long as everyone gets their money, that includes the seller and that includes the government to get their 3% of the property transfer tax. For example, we presently have a case of a buyer and a seller in Australia. So the Croatian diaspora in Australia the seller has property in Croatia and the buyer's in Australia wants to buy her property. So we will do the transaction here, but they will just transfer from one Australian bank account into another Australian bank account. And as long as the buyer then pays the taxes in Croatia. So it doesn't matter how it's financed, as long as everybody gets what they need to get.
Okay, I hope that clears up this lady's question and maybe some other people's questions, whether or not they can finance their, their purchases in Croatia with American or Canadian bank accounts or other bank accounts from other countries. So now this question is from Monika. You can kind of tell that they already know which question is coming. So, so for the members of the Croatian diaspora in the United States who not hold Croatian citizenship but hold properties in Croatia, what estate planning activities do you recommend we perform in the Croatian legal system to ensure that these assets are properly protected from risk during our lifetime and then allocated to beneficiaries upon death? So this is more or less like the idea of a trust, but those don't exist in Croatia. So what are some things that we can mitigate risk with?
Well, actually, as you already mentioned, and as Don mentioned, we don't have trust and we don't have similar institute in Croatian legal system. But if you own land in Croatia, you just make sure that your ownership is registered and you make sure that no one is using your land without a permission. So if you have a neighbor, maybe he can check from time to time if there's somebody on your land, but there's no other way to save your land because you have to be here in Croatia and we don't have trust.
Mm-hmm. So now I kind of want to go into business questions, specifically like opening up businesses in Croatia. I remember when I was personally working at the Croatian Chamber of Economy, that a lot of people, they would ask these questions specifically from the diaspora. So whenever I went to ACAP meetings, like what are some of the cheaper options of opening up a business and what are the benefits of opening up each kind of businesses? Is there corporations or whatnot? So the next question is about what type of businesses are in Croatia. So what are some of the options in opening a business in Croatia? What are the legal benefits of each business type? And what are the costs of opening each kind of business?
Mm-hmm. So there are many different types of companies in Croatia, and I'll try to briefly outline the most common types of companies in Croatia. Well, the first one is the joint stock company, which can have one or more shareholders, and the minimum initial capital is 200,000 kuna, and the minimum nominal value of per share is 10 kuna. There's also a limited liability company, or DO, which is the most common company in Croatia. In this company, this company can have one founder or many founders, but the minimum initial capital is 20,000 kuna. And also founders have a percentage business stake, they don't have a share. There's also one type of company which is actually recently introduced in our legal system, and it can be very interesting for those who maybe want to set up a company with a lot of money because you need to have only 10 kuna. It is the simple company, a limited liability company, or JDOO, how it is called in Croatian. So all you have to is pay 10 kuna for initial capital, and that's it. But this company has only 5 members and 1 board member. What is interesting, and usually people ask, do they need to have a Croatian citizenship to set up a company in Croatia? The answer is no. They don't need to have Croatian citizenship. They can be directors or founders as foreigners. Also, in all of these types of companies, the founder is not personally liable for a company's duties or obligations, which is also very important. If you want to set up a company in Croatia, you will need to file certain documentation to the court. All of the documentation must be notarized at notary public. So once when you pay the initial capital and when you file the documentation to the court, you will have to wait approximately 2 or 3 weeks, to get a court decision on formation of your company. And then you can say, okay, you set up a company, but you need to take further steps. For example, you need to open a bank account, which can be tricky because of the recent, strict money laundering controls. So most of the banks demand, the founder to come personally in the bank, which can be a problem for those who are not in Croatia, who live in some other country. Also, you need to register your ownership in the register of real owners of business, which is something also recently introduced in our legal system. What people usually also ask is, what is the difference between small business or crafts and companies? Well, to set up a craft is cheaper because you need like 300 kuna and it will take like approximately 15 days. But on the other hand, craft is not an entity in our legal system, which means that craftsman is actually personally liable for all crafts duties and obligations, which is not, good sometimes. It can be a problem. Yeah.
So this is the difference between a JDO and an obrt in Croatia.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
so I hope
company,
that JDO is a company, and then the DOO, and then there's also bigger companies, so like dioničko društvo and everything like that. So a DD, but those are for bigger companies like Podravka or if you're a bank. So
and if you have 200,000 kuna.
Now, yeah, exactly. And that's why I think this person specifically asked this question, is because she saw that a DOO, you need to have something like 5,000 kunas to be in the bank account. But there's other options that you can open up a smaller company at the very beginning. And let's be honest, like your company is not going to have, 15, 20 people at the very beginning unless you're producing something. If you're doing like some sort of small business or something like that, it's better just to open up an obrt if you're doing that sort of business, or a JDO. And then could you maybe answer one more thing? Can you have a JDO and then make it into a DOO later on in the business?
Of course, you can change your company. You can transfer that to, if you have enough money, enough capital and other conditions, are settled. So I think it's fine. You can transfer that to DOO or whatever.
Yeah.
There's no problem.
Yeah, and that's what I usually suggested to a lot of people whenever they opened up a company, is that it's better just to open up the JDO, and then when you have enough money coming in and you're able to make it into a DOO, it's just better to do it like that. Yeah, so I'd like to go on to, exactly. So now I'd like to kind of go on to Don and ask a question. It's specifically about the Croatian legal system, and as Don said, there's no perfect legal system really anywhere. We could say that some maybe are. We can't say that the Croatian legal system is better than the Canadian or Australian or whatnot, but there are obviously things that could be improved on in the Croatian legal system, and this was actually addressed by the Croatian ambassador a couple months ago, before the whole earthquake and the pandemic. So on February 4th, while giving a talk at the Croatian Bar Association, American Ambassador Kohorst mentioned 3 things that could immediately be implemented to make the legal system more efficient in Croatia. Those were: the court processes should be filmed. The second thing is to implement a system that has clearly defined deadlines and dates in which decisions have to be made. And the third thing was that testimonies in court cases should be done sequentially. So not like you have a court case and then 2 weeks later, it's a continuation of that court case. And like how they do it in the United States, as Don explained it to me, that you have a court case and you continually have that court case on multiple days. So maybe it'll take you 2-3 months to get it, but 2-3 months to actually get to your court case. But once you get to your court case, you solve the the outcome of the court case right away. So many of the top lawyers in Croatia patronized the ambassador for saying this, and he said, And many of them said he means well. So the American ambassador means well, but he doesn't, but it won't work in Croatia. What is your take, Don, on what the ambassador said, and what are some of the other things in the Croatian court system that might be reviewed in the future to attract international investment?
Well, I think you meant audio, not just rather than video, but
yeah,
right.
Audio, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with him. These are really simple things, and you know, the lawyers you talk about, they prominent lawyers, they said that it can't be implemented. These three things can't be implemented in Croatia because they said you have to change everything, and it would be too expensive. Well, I think it would be too expensive that we're missing out a lot of US investment. The reason why the ambassador made these suggestions is to make the judicial system more efficient so that we could get more American investment. He said it'd be like much more efficient. So the cost is not just you know, losing one investor who has a you know, bad result in a court case or has lost, but it's the loss of confidence by future investors who will not invest in the future. So the cost of what goes on today is carried on exponentially if the judicial system is wrong. So when they sort of dismissed his suggestions as too expensive, I think that not implementing them is much more expensive. Many other ways we could improve, but you know, how do you manage the risk? That's the issue. So rather than trying to fix everything, there is another way, and that is not to rely on the Croatian legal system at all. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you're an American citizen, you can rely on the bilateral investment protection treaty that the US has signed with Croatia. We have in Croatia what are well known as local sheriffs, you know, local mayors that you know, sometimes corrupt or they stifle investment just out of spite, and even if they don't benefit personally. But the thing is, they exist, and the federal government or the national government, they can't control the local sheriffs, even if they would like to. But the thing is that the national government is liable for the actions of these local sheriffs and local mayors. So you know, even though they don't control them, they're liable for their actions under the bilateral investment protection treaty. So, for example, we have a current case where we're not going through the local courts, but we invoke the bilateral investment protection treaty between the US and Croatia for this Croatian but American investor of Croatian origin. And we've told the government, the federal government, the national government, that is, that you know, that the investor has been you know, suffered damage because of the local mayor, and it's the national government that will now have to you know, pay the damages. The other thing is, once you internationalize a case like that, then the ambassador of that country, in this case the US ambassador, he will get involved because, you know, it's a fight between Croatia and the US.
The United
States, and he would really like to nip it in the bud. So, you know, you want to negotiate it and not let it go to arbitration. But certainly for this investor, if the negotiations break down, he can certainly take it to Washington. So, you know, you can certainly internationalize something.
No, I think it makes some really good points that if you, like, a lot of our viewers are coming in from the United States, specifically even some people from ACAP, that if you come to Croatia, it's not necessarily like, okay, well, now I'm in Croatia, this is my jurisdiction. Yes, that is the case, but also you do have rights as an American in Croatia because of that bilateral treaty. And if you do have problems in investing, then you can invoke that bilateral treaty. So I think that's a really important point to kind of hit home. That I think, you know, we're not.
Yeah, the advice is to be American when it suits you and Croatian when it suits you, because you know, American investors, when they establish a Croatian company, they're entitled for EU funds as a Croatian company because Croatia is in the EU, even though they are American investors, because it's a Croatian company. So what I'm saying is, take advantage of your situation in whichever circumstance it is.
Yeah. Well, you know. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to everybody's question today, you know, and we wanted to make it as concise as possible. But what I'm going to try to do, because we had problems with some of the audio at the very beginning, is that I'm going to make a nice long kind of like a summation of what we all said during this webinar, just in case you weren't able to listen at the very beginning. And, I'll place that on Croatia Week and other places so that people can read it. So lastly, I would like to just kind of ask Don before we conclude and just kind of, end the whole thing. Is there anything that you want to kind of say to the Croatian diaspora about, investing in Croatia, finding your land rights in Croatia? Like, what are some of the, one of the things that I put inside of the, when I was advertising this webinar is, what are some of the traps? What are some of the things that you should look out for? We mentioned some of them during this video, but overall, what you should be careful of, and what you should do, like as a Croatian, living abroad in Croatia, and if you have land, if you have anything.
Well, you see, there's not just one approach. You don't have to just go to court or give up when some bureaucrat says no. Look, the US ambassador, he said that he was very optimistic about the judicial system in Croatia, and that we just needed energy and the will to make things better. So if the US ambassador is optimistic, I think that we should all be optimistic. The key to doing business or anything in Croatia is persistence. And it might take longer, but once it happens, then it's a permanent change and it helps other people. My example of my law degree, I mean, it took 10 years, but now other lawyers can benefit from that, much more quickly. Stepinac, he said that you should always fight, even if it looks like it's impossible.
Exactly.
There are good people here. There are good people in the law. There are good judges. There are good people in the public service, in the bureaucracy. But sometimes when you think that something is absurd, you shouldn't just frown upon it. You should try. They might just need to have it explained. For example, a while back, the law on foreigners, it said that a foreigner could not bring his wife or her husband to Croatia and their children. Like, you couldn't bring your family. Now, this was ridiculous because a foreign investor, you can have the best tax incentives and the best foreign investment incentives, but if you can't bring your family, you're not going to go to that country. But when we explained that to the impinging on foreign investment here, he said, "Oh, you're right. Oh, we didn't realize that. We've got to change that." So he agreed, and it was changed. We had another case where we had to, again, the law, there was something wrong in the law where our client had to do a lot more things, get a lot more papers than other people for a tender procedure. And, we had to change the law, but it was really hard to change the law when you've got a government that's got a slim majority. They can't, it's hard to get their things through, and let alone for me to ask to change the law. But we then went to the ministry and the guy in charge there, and we said, look, this the way it is now, our client has to produce all these documents. And first he said, well, oh, don't worry, nobody will think of that. But that's not true, because the people who would lose the tender, they will then say, oh, but they didn't produce all these hundreds of documents that we didn't have to. But the answer that we had was, well, look, let's change the regulation. All you have to do is not change the law, but the regulation, which you can do without going to Parliament, and it fixes everything. So I think people are practical when you explain it to them and explain what the problem is and how it can be resolved. And you do tend to them to be to want to do that. And it also in terms of decisions, I'm actually being sued by a foreign organization, me personally, and my little Croatian organizations that's being funded by the foreign organization that's suing us is being funded by George Soros. Now they tried to close down this little organization in Croatia, but we recently got a decision in our favor against this giant because the person handling the case had the guts to say, this foreign organization, which is very well renowned, this is Croatia and Croatian law, and what you are doing is wrong. So he actually upheld Croatian sovereignty. He actually said that, look, what this organization, which is very well respected, but doing the wrong thing in Croatia, has acted in bad faith. And they were actually trying to eliminate my little organization. We have other cases. I can mention Damir Sabljak. He spoke of irregularities about Croatian embassies, in Croatian embassies that were going on. And, he was suspended. The Prime Minister actually said, well, these sort of complaints that he does, they don't get anywhere. Well, he's going all the way to the European Court to fight for his rights. And also, I must commend the diaspora who filed a criminal complaint against Beljak. He's a politician who said that the Yugoslav secret police didn't kill enough Croatians in the diaspora during communism. Now, we all know that's going to be a difficult case because he's a politician here. But I think we've won, even right at the outset, because even if the case does get thrown out, then we can point to where the system is wrong and say, hang on a second, if this was against the law and if the case has been thrown out, then there's something wrong here, and we can point that out and make sure that the, you know, when there's something against another case, that we can highlight that. So I think that you know, we can try and fix the system, and it's a case of being persistent. And I think there is a lot of cause for optimism.
Yeah, and you know, just speaking to you, Don, you know, when it, like even before all this pandemic, and I wasn't able to see you and stuff, is that that's your principles. You know, you always are fighting no matter what. You know, you fight no matter what. You have that cardinal stepinac sort of mentality in your heart, and you say, hey, like, you know, I know that this is right. You got to keep on fighting. You got to keep on being persistent, and eventually it'll change. Maybe it'll take, you know, 5-6 years, but you know, you just got to keep on going, because you know, I think many of us, especially in the Croatian diaspora, you know, we kind of look at Croatia. That's our one homeland. You know, we fought for that homeland. It took many years to fight for Croatia and to say, okay, let's keep on going. You know, even though that Croatia was not, you know, didn't have a name, it was Yugoslavia, whatever, and we kept on fighting. We kept on lobbying for Croatia to be independent, and then when Croatia was independent, we kept on lobbying for, you know, for them to stop the war and to intervene in the war. And then, you know, now it's just another fight, and we got to keep on fighting, and that's just part of the evolution of any country. And you know, it's really honorable what you have done and what Monika is are doing in Croatia for, you know, for many people that are from outside of Croatia trying to invest in Croatia. And you know, it's going to be a long road, but you know, I think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, and there are many young people who, especially young lawyers, who are passionate about the law, and they're doing the law because they want to get things done. And I'm really lucky in my office. You know, they're standing up to these judges. They're standing up for their principles. You know, and when we do these sort of things, you know, in Croatia, when you sort of stand up against, or let's say somebody more powerful, that other side will usually say, you know, we'll find out who's behind you. There's got to be somebody behind you. There's always somebody behind you if you're successful, or if you're trying to fight somebody bigger. You know, they're still looking, but the answer that I can give is that well, I can show you who's behind me.
Yeah, Carlos Stepinac is behind you. No, I remember you told me that one story about this one guy that like he kept on parking in front of the house, right?
That's right, and he was a really tough guy. He was a tough guy. We won't say how tough, but my neighbor said, "What's the matter with you, man? You're gonna izgubit ćeš glavu because of a parking spot." I said, "It's the rule of law," and he was really shocked that I even mentioned it to him, and yeah, he backed down, and he's still trying to find out who's behind me.
You should come up. You should come up to your office and actually see the picture of Cardinal Stepinac. Then you'll know. Maybe he's watching this webinar right now.
Then I'll be in trouble.
No, but anyways, what I would like to kind of propose is that there are a lot of legal questions, and I think that you know, if our viewers would like, just maybe comment below this video and kind of say whether or not you like to have a part 2 of this legal webinar. And then what we can do is that maybe in a month from now, we can kind of, you know, do more of these questions, because I don't want to drag it on for 2-3 hours, because I don't think people are going to, you know, want to listen for that long. And a lot of this material is very, very dense. Well, the material is very dense, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's better to do it in small spurts and then actually get the answer that you want to get. So I want to thank Don, and I want to thank Monika for, you know, taking the time and preparing these questions for us. And I hope that this helped some of you. And, you know, leave some more questions down below in the comments, and also send me an email at croatia@crodiaspora.com, and we'll put together another list, and maybe in a month from now we can do another one of these, because I think it's really important that you know your rights in Croatia, and that you know a little bit more about the legal system. And it's not just anybody telling you this information, but you're getting it from the source. You're getting it from experts like Don and Monika, and yeah, that's that. So thank you, Don. Thank you, Monika, and hope that helped some people.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.